We're going to continue on today with the NFL side of things, and I'll go ahead and go first here. Plant a flag, and this one I'm very, very confident in. One of the first bets that I made over the course of the season, and that is the Eagles to win the NFC East. I also have an Eagles win total ticket as well. That number is no longer available, so I didn't put that on this list because I'm not going to give you bets and things that you can't make anymore. So Eagles to win the NFC East. It's juiced at -135 over at DraftKings. If you look at this roster, Mike, I mean, it is very, very hard to really poke a hole in anything. I mean, you're looking at, yes, there were a couple of losses on the defensive line, but then they go out and then they draft, in my opinion, the most talented player in the draft to fill that gap. And what we saw in the preseason in his limited time on the field, absolutely beast out there. You look on the offensive side, you have guys really at every single level, great offensive line, great playmakers at the wide receiver position, depth at the running back position, a quarterback that really, really took steps last year to not only protect the ball a little bit better, but make better decisions along the way. I think the coaching staff is great. I'm just looking around, and I understand there's going to be they have to fill some of the gaps in the coordinator positions and things like that. But if you're a new coordinator walking into this roster, it makes the transition a lot easier whenever you have one of the most talented offensive lines, one of the most talented receiving cores, and oh, by the way, a quarterback that really did play at MVP level last year.
It definitely covers up some of the holes that may be in your scheming process there. The big question here, two big questions, right? The coordinators you mentioned, new offensive, new defensive coordinators, what are they going to do? And the schedule. Look, the Eagles had a very, very easy schedule last year. They were able to rack those wins up against some bad teams. It's going to be tougher this year. I do think the Cowboys are a little better, but guess what? They've got an offensive coordinator question here as well. So the only really team that can beat the Eagles here is the Cowboys. I think it's going to be tough for the Cowboys to get over that hump. I think it's pretty much a 50-50 coin flip, but you like the Eagles roster better, so I don't hate the idea of the bet there because they are the most likely team to win this division. It's just how much do you believe in this roster versus the Dallas roster?
Yeah, if you take a look, I mean, I don't think that it's crazy to think that maybe the two best teams in the NFC are both in this division, right? I mean, could we be looking at the end of the season and the Cowboys and the Eagles are the two best teams in the entire conference? I think that's probably... there's probably a scenario that plays out more times than you would even think, right? I mean, it's both very, very talented rosters. Both, if you assume health, which we always have to do with these types of previews, it's really hard to kind of poke holes, right? Good defense in the Cowboys side of things, good offense on the Cowboys side of things, awesome defense on the Eagles side of things, awesome offense on that side. And look, making up for the coordinator position losses is an offensive line that, so long as they stay healthy, it makes an offensive coordinator's job so much easier because if your quarterback's not running for his life, if you're able to run block and pass block, which, by the way, this is what this offensive line does, and then you have two of the top, 20 receivers, maybe even 15 receivers in all the NFL for your guy to throw it to, points are going to be scored, right? And now you look on the other side where you have Sweat and Reddick, and you drafted Carter, and you got Bradbury, and you got Slay. I mean, it's literally at every single level on the defensive side, too. They're not going to give up a ton of points. So it's just, I don't know if they're ever going to be looking up at really double-digit deficits over the course of the entire season.
Yeah, I have the Eagles as the number 2 team power rated in the NFL. I have the Cowboys at 4. So I think I have them as the best 2 teams in the NFC right now. And the one thing that I'm leery about here with the Eagles is last year they got to play bully ball a lot. They put up leads in the first half and then just were able to sit on them in the second half. I don't know if that was Sirianni. I don't know if that was specifically the offensive coordinator who left for Indianapolis. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can jump out to those same type of leads because they are built to hold those leads. With this run game, with this big offensive line, with their pass rush on the defensive side of the ball, it's hard to come back against Philadelphia. If they're able to get up, they're one of those teams that's going to win more often than not. We'll see if they're able to get up in that same way this year that they were last year in the first half. The other thing I'm really interested to see, and FIU actually adopted the Jalen Hurts Philadelphia Eagle sneak push play last night. We saw them run it twice. How's the NFL going to adapt to that? Because you've got to think there were defensive coordinators that were sitting in dark rooms for a long time figuring out how we're going to stop this because you can't give up a play that works 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You've got to come up with some way to stop it. And the play calling offensively with the Eagles was absolutely transcendent on 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 4 to just get into 4th and 1 because they knew they could pick it up if they got there. Yep. It really opened up the playbook on those short yardage downs.
My second one is the Jags to win the AFC South. This is a little bit juicy. I think that this isn't for everyone's bankroll to lock up money for as long as it takes to win this at -155. That being said, I have them winning this division pretty much like 85, 90% of the time. I mean, there's always the scenario in which Trevor Lawrence has some sort of injury that keeps him out for a long period of time. And if that's the case, then it certainly changes the math on all of this. But again, we're assuming health going into this. And you just look, the bottom two teams are not going to win this division. It's just not going to happen, right? It's not going to be the Colts. It's not going to be the Texans. So the only threat here in all of this would be the Titans. You and I think, have hit on this a couple of different times. There's no financial commitment to Ryan Tannehill past this season for this Titans team. They have a couple of different quarterbacks. They just spent a second-round pick. They also had spent a pick on Malik Willis last year. So they have some other guys that they can give looks to as well. I think if you look in the middle of the season, this team's 500, maybe a little bit under 500, that we could see a quarterback switch. We could see hey, let's see what we have here moving forward. We're not going to win anyway. Let's go ahead and play one of these young guys and see if there's anything there at all. And if that's the case, that even strengthens my case here on the Jags. It's by far the best roster in the division for sure. And then I think by far the best coaching staff in the division as well. So for me, I really do like what we've got here with the Jags. I understand, not a bet for everyone with a minus 155 juice attached to it, but I really do like it to cash.
Yeah, I already have this one in the account as well. I have the Jaguars rated number 8 in the NFL. I have the Tennessee Titans rated number 28 with the Colts and the Texans right behind them at 29 and 30. So I think there's a massive edge here inside the division. I don't think 155 is juiced out of it. Again, like you said, though, this is not a bet for everyone. You're holding your money for a while here. If you don't have a big enough bankroll to play it, it's a little hard to play it. And that Titans team opens with the Saints, Chargers, Browns, Bengals. They get one against the Colts, then they get the Ravens and the Falcons. Hello, 1-6.
Yeah.
And by the way, they also have Tajay Spears behind Derrick Henry. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a fire sale after 7 weeks.
Yeah, and we look over. Hey, Will Levis, you ready to go, buddy? Let's do it. Let's see what we got in you with all of this. My third one, Seahawks over 9.5 wins. You're getting this at plus 125. I'm pretty bullish on the Seahawks. You've listened to this program for the last month and a half. You know, I think there's a lot here on this, and it's not the Legion of Boom anymore. Don't get me wrong. It's not the Legion of Boom, but they have built up this defense pretty good, and they've gone out and they've drafted. They made a couple of signings as well. And then you look on the offensive side of the ball. Geno Smith, there is going to be some regression for Geno Smith. I don't think Geno Smith just overnight became one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think that. But as long as that regression isn't basically falling off of a cliff with the weapons that they've got there, the running back stable that they've got there, and then what I think that they can do now with the addition of Jackson Smith and Jigba that should open up stuff even more for a DK Metcalf and a Tyler Lockett. I think this team getting to 10 wins. I mean, 10-7 still might not win the division, but 10-7 to me it probably should be well within reason for what they've got on both sides of the ball.
Well, on top of that, you've got 3 rookies who really produced for them last year. Wooten on the outside at cornerback, and then both of their tackles were first and third round picks last year in the draft. All 3 of the players actually started to struggle week 12 on. They hit that rookie wall. If they progress and take that second-year step, all of a sudden this offensive line is significantly better than what we thought last year. And now you have Witherspoon and Wooten, who are 2 very good cornerbacks on either side as well on the outside. I think there's a ton of upside with Seattle. We'll talk about them when I plant a flag as well.
I like it. 2 rookie passing props for me to close things out. Anthony Richardson over 2,800.5 passing yards, and then Bryce Young over 3,200.5 passing yards. I like the Anthony Richardson one even better now with what we've got going on with the Jonathan Taylor situation. This team's going to be bad as it is anyway. It's going to open up. He's going to throw. I actually have this off, but my projections are like 400 yards off of this. Like I actually have him closer to 3,200 yards in this thing. And so a bet for me every single day of the week. And then Bryce Young, I have closer to 3,600. So I have kind of a 380 yard edge on this one. These are guys we're assuming health. We're assuming they're going to make all the starts. Listen, unless there is a utter disaster, they're going to play they're not getting benched over the course of the season either. And so if that's the case, they don't have to average very many yards at all. And like I said, with Richardson, I like it even better that Jonathan Taylor might not be there.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.